After reading this chapter and examining a lot about student diversity, it makes me wonder, what about teacher diversity? What about discrepancies in the way that students view their teachers? How does that affect the classroom? I know I related it on one thing about my experience with my second grade teacher. I had a lot of problems with him because he was a male teacher and I'd never had a male teacher. There wasn't a male in my home. And so I had a lot of trouble with that interaction. I was afraid of him because in my world, guys were scary. So as teachers, how do we address that issue? How could my teacher have addressed my fear? I can't imagine a good response. I've thought it through multiple times throughout this chapter, and I cannot think of a way he could have responded to the situation that would have helped alleviate my fear. The only thing I can think of is that if someone had noticed, and I have no idea that anyone did, but if someone had noticed, they could have brought it to the attention of my mother and to myself, and maybe as we could work as a team to address the issue. But even then, how do you work with students like that? Another concern I have is the discrepancy between parents who work and parents who don't. Students with parents who are active and involved in their lives have completely different not responsibilities. They have different advantages in life. If they have a parent who works, 60 hours a week and they never see, how is that student supposed to get the same experience as somebody has a stay-at-home mom and a dad who only works part-time? And so how do we as educators address that issue? Address the issue of inactive parents and the issue of students who have problems with their teachers based off predisposed notions. What about a student who was raised being very racist and they end up with a teacher who's in a race that they've been raised to hate? How does that teacher and that student, how do they address that issue? So those are a lot of questions I have about this course. These are challenges that I can't imagine how I would react to. And maybe it's not as big of an issue as I think it is, but I'm really concerned because it is an issue that I personally dealt with. Now, I didn't have any problems with racial things. My mother rose me to be very open-minded. But that gender problem, and what about just other cultures? There's more and more students from coming to Boise, refugees. And what if they just don't understand? In the daycare I work at, we've got this little girl who, I think she's from Port-au-Prince, but I'm not positive. But she doesn't understand a lot that we talk to her about. We tell her to go to the bathroom and wash her hands. Well, we have to point to the bathroom, and even then she doesn't always understand. And that's language barrier, but there's also culture barriers. Like the tattling, that's a culture thing, and that's a real issue that I deal with at my job, but it's different when you're a teacher. I mean, the misunderstandings. And I understand a lot of how I would react with my emotions and my feelings, but how do we address a student's emotions and feelings? I guess that's mostly all the questions I have. Thanks.